Well, hello!
Yeah.
Welcome to a brand new podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Cat.
Okay, wow.
And that will make me Mr. Gurl.
Sponsored by Pepsi.
No, we're not.
Okay, but anyway, welcome to a new location for the fourth time.
This is a new podcast, though, so this is the first location of people who only watch this one.
Either way, this is our new podcast called Off the Air.
Yes. In which case, very simple rules for this. We review TV shows. And as per the name says, we review TV shows that are off the air.
Yes. So any show we are going to watch, they have to have had a beginning date and, of course, an end date.
Yep.
The end date can be for any reason, cancellation, or the writers have actually concluded the show.
Yep. As long as the show has ended.
Yep, and it's even if it's on circulation, syndication, it's perfectly fine. It's just it has to be quote done production, 100%, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So,
And as of recording, because theoretically one of these shows could just continue again at some point.
Well, at least
It's extremely unlikely, though.
Our first two shows that we'll be talking about is something that we've been wanting to do for a while, and we are pretty sure they are not going to get
Absolutely not.
Absolutely are not going to get continuations on their own right, but they could get spin-offs. I know the first show that we're talking about today is having a spin-off coming out sometime this year.
Yep.
And Bryce, would you like to introduce to us what the show is?
Yes. So we are going to be reviewing for you the first season of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Which I've personally seen several times. I've seen the first season a whole ton. And Tanner, this is your first time ever seeing it.
Yep, this is my first time ever seeing it. I've always wanted to see the show. This has been possibly the most popular show of the 2010s.
Oh, probably, yeah. I would say so.
Because, everybody and their grandma has always said, have you seen Game of Thrones? Or have you ever seen the latest episode? And I always say, I've never seen it. I know the basic idea around it, but I've only seen, say, a couple of the characters, and maybe I recognize a couple of the actors, because I know one especially in the first season is super popular today. You know who it is, Bryce. He played Aquaman.
Oh yeah.
Jason Momoa.
Yes.
Anyway, but we've watched the first season of Game of Thrones. At the very end of the show here, we will tell you what our next thing we have to watch, because we're going to be watching two shows interchangeably between seasons.
So we're not going to be, the first 8 episodes are not going to be about Game of Thrones. We're going to be interspicing them with different shows, so in the event you don't care about Game of Thrones, the first 8 episodes aren't just immediately a turnoff. Mm-hmm. The second episode you might be more interested in than the first one, or the first episode you might be more interested in the second one.
Yep. This has pretty much been has been another thing that me and Bryce always wanted to do. If you've seen our other podcast, the Cat Girl Film Podcast, we always wanted to see our top 20 films.
Yep.
However, this one is another big passion project we wanted to do. We wanted to see each other's favorite TV shows. Bryce's is, of course, Game of Thrones.
Well, I wouldn't say it's my favorite TV show.
One of.
Yeah, I would say it's one of.
It was one of.
It's definitely it's definitely one of the shows I'm passionate about.
And now my other show that I really love, it is probably my favorite TV show, even though I don't really watch TV shows. It's never been my thing. However, the one that we'll be reviewing next week's episode, or whenever we finally finish up the first season of this show, we will be talking about that. But Game of Thrones.
Yes.
All right. So
before we begin this, so I watched the first season multiple times. I believe I did a count of 7 times. You watched it none. Before going into the season, what did you know about it?
All right. So pretty much mostly what I've known about it was my whole big thing is around history. I've always known about the whole medieval aspect. I know about George R.R. Martin. He's a very, very famous writer, not just in books, but also television shows. Yep. He loves his fantasy stuff. And pretty much all I know about Game of Thrones is that a king dies, and there's a whole giant succession crisis. Who is going to take the throne? And there's these multiple families that are laying claim to the throne, and they are just duking it out. There's a bunch of sex that we're going to have to talk about.
Yeah.
There's a lot of murder. Yeah. And there's just a whole bunch of other stuff into it as well. And pretty much one person, he tried to sell me onto the show by saying it is a deconstruction on your typical fantasy genre.
Yep.
It plays a lot of the tropes. One that he actually tried to point to exactly was take a look at some of the knights or some of the people that are portrayed to having looking cleanly and looking, quote, beautiful, even though they're the worst monsters in the entire show.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, that's a very simple trope to subvert, but I respect their choices. And pretty much, yeah. I never read the book. I do own the first book, and I've only read like a few chapters, but then I just got tired and thought, I'm not sure I'm going to enjoy the books. Maybe I'll just watch the TV show. And pretty much, yeah. But other things I know about Game of Thrones, a lot of people treat this like, do you remember back in the late 2000s with the whole Twilight craze?
Oh.
So if you don't know, like in the second movie, it was when you had the vampire character and the werewolf character fighting it over, and people were arguing who was the better one. Really cringy back in the day, but that just says to you how weird the late 2000s was.
Oh, yeah.
And pretty much, yeah, the same thing kind of happened here. Well, not to an extreme degree. It was just, which house do you side? Do you side with, say, the Targaryens, the Lannisters, the Starks, and the so-ons?
Yeah.
Pretty much I thought, okay, this will be a very interesting show, and I'd be interested in seeing how the writers would try to conclude it if they ever decided to. Because the books are not even close to being done.
No.
Martin is very famous for taking his sweet time for writing Game of Thrones, in which I'm going to be honest, a lot of respect for him because, good lord, I'd rather take my time to make sure it'll be actually complete. However, if he ends up like another artist that I'm a big fan of, he would probably never finish it at all. I mean, last year, if you never heard, Kentaro Miura, he is a mangaka artist. He was writing a series that is very similar to that of Game of Thrones called Berserk. The only thing that's similar about it is its medieval aspect and the whole dark fantasy aspect. You would probably recognize more the art price because you played a lot of Dark Souls and stuff.
Okay.
So there's a lot of similarities with it. But Miura passed away last year. The series isn't complete yet. I have no idea if they're going to continue it. But pretty much, I don't know. I have a lot of respect for Martin as a writer. I think he is pretty brilliant at what he does.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm very interested in seeing what his most famous series is of all time, beloved all around the world by geeks and normies alike, Game of Thrones.
Yes.
So give it to me and let me see how I feel about it.
So, first episode. We're probably not going to be doing this too much of episodes because Game of Thrones kind of blends together a lot.
Yeah, so like I mentioned this to Bryce earlier last night before I went to bed. I was saying I had to rewatch a recap of the entire show because there's a lot of stuff that happens in every single episode, and it feels like a lot of the story is just meshed into the story. Like the overall story of the first season is just meshed into the episodes, and I just forget like I know what happens, but there's another thing too with Game of Thrones. There's a lot of damn characters.
There's a lot.
Like one of my favorite books of all time is War and Peace, and if you've ever read it, there's a lot of characters.
Oh, yeah.
And good lord, Game of Thrones is no exception. There's a lot of characters, even in the first season. Mm-hmm. I'm just having to base off of facial features of some people, like, oh, there's a guy with a really cool goatee, and there's somebody with darker hair that is related to this guy, and then this other guy. So I probably should have printed out a piece of paper that just said, oh, who are these characters and who are they aligned with, so I remember, but I just know basic story beats and what at the very end of the season it ended on, because it was pretty big on what hell happened at the very end. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that happens, and it makes me think, holy crap.
So let's handle this one story arc at a time and go through there opposed to episode by episode.
Yeah, I feel like that would be the best way to go with it.
Alright, in which case, the series starts off with the Starks.
Yep, so the Starks. Also known as the ones that their animal is aligned with the direwolf, it's called. Okay, so I guess I should start off with the head of the Starks.
Well, before then.
Well, okay.
I was wanting to go with the story arc for that.
Oh. Okay.
Because we don't actually start with seeing the Starks. We start off beyond the wall.
Oh, right. I almost forgot about the wall, even though that is pretty integral. I can already tell there's a lot of interesting things with the wall. Even though whenever I first saw it, all I could think of was Pink Floyd's The Wall.
Oh, okay.
I just had a laugh whenever I was watching. I was like, oh, yeah. You don't need no. And I was just thinking, but no, I do understand like a little bit about the wall. And when I was rewatching it, a little bit, I was thinking, the wall. What is beyond the wall? So yeah, the show starts with a few people. I believe it's 3 people.
Yes, start off 3. I don't believe we're given their names, and we might be, but they're not important.
Yeah.
We're about to figure out very quickly why they're not important.
Yeah, okay, so essentially the show starts off with 3 men that are supposed to be, like, in my opinion, I just see them as, like, say, lighthouse keepers or just actually wall keepers. They're just somebody that protects the wall. So pretty much this is how we start off with. We have 3 men that are bound to this wall and they're having to watch over it and they cannot break their oath. This will be very important later.
Yeah.
And pretty much they go beyond the wall to go check out something and one of them stumbles upon a massacre.
Yep.
Dead bodies everywhere and they even went as far as to kill the children.
Yes, but the massacre has something even more important.
What is it?
It looks almost like a ritualistic massacre.
Yes. And pretty much... Yeah, the guy tries to run back to his colleagues, and they do not believe him. And as soon as they get back to this whole ritualistic massacre, they're all gone. Mm-hmm. And eventually they found out that this was a trap, and pretty much, his colleagues are both maimed one by one. And the one that saw the entire ritual to begin with, he ran outside the wall, quote, breaking his oath.
Yep.
And this is when the entire story officially begins.
Yes. Which is now when we get to the Starks, which you actually can discuss now.
Alright, so I want to start off with Ned.
Yes. Old Ned.
Yep. I'm a very big...
He has another nickname, but we'll get to that in a second.
I guess, yeah. However, I just want to say by names, but we can also break down a little bit about their whole other side names. Because it feels like with medieval stuff, people have their official name, but they also have their title.
I was more referring to the fans' nickname for him.
Oh, dear God. Don't tell me it's something like Daddy Stark or something.
No, it's Dead Ned.
Spoiler alert! No, I'm kidding. Essentially, yeah. Alright, so Ned.
Yes.
I was very intrigued by Ned. I honestly was thinking to myself whenever I was watching, I was thinking, I think I know what's going to happen to him, but I just want to see how this plays out. Pretty much Bryce gave it away at the end of that, but pretty much, I was intrigued by Ned. He was actually very much of a family man. He cares about his children. He cares about everybody, even, he kind of cares about his bastard son, Jon Snow. He only cares about him a little bit. But he only cares as much as he has to because of... Did they ever say what happened to that mistress that he had the affair with? Okay. But pretty much, Ned is a very interesting guy. He's somebody that is very much a loyal man to a friend.
Yep.
Which will be Robert, the king.
Yep.
He's very, very loyal to him. And pretty much, he has himself a little bit of a PTSD when it regards to war. Like, he was involved with so many battles as far as, like, going up against the Targaryens, the original heirs to the throne.
Yep.
He has a lot of PTSD regarding that, so he would not want to probably go through another war. But, but the main thing I always got from him was he's very loyal.
Yes.
And I very much like that. I enjoyed his whole thing. However, I didn't get a chance to see much of him because at the very end of the season, the man is dead because he thought a little too much and he discovered the, quote, dark secret of...
He is loyal to a T, and that is what's got him.
Yeah, he's loyal to a T, and he was, like, trying to expose corruption within the royal family from the wife of the king.
Well, I guess honorable to a T is the...
What's their last name? The Lannisters.
Lannister, yes.
Yes. But yeah, I enjoyed Ned for what he was until he died, and I will give him that. I mean, he was, I guess, like, oh God, I can't say that. That's actually mean. No.
Then we have his eldest son, Robert.
Robert Stark.
Yes.
To be honest, I completely forgot much of his children except for the couple of other ones.
Robert's the one that they send a letter for, and he declares war.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So this is like... So at the very end of the season, it's pretty much... This is one part of the story where it ends off at the North and the South are officially at war.
Yes.
And it's very interesting. So Robert is pretty much consumed as to be the head of the Starks from that point on. And he declares war on the Lannisters and on the royal family pretty much. Or at least the people that are holding the throne hostage.
Yep.
And he declares war on what's his name now? The illegitimate son of the king.
Oh, Joffrey.
Joffrey, that's him. Yeah, so he declares war on him. Joffrey is... We're going to get to Joffrey in a little bit.
Yeah.
God damn it. And pretty much, yeah. So Robert is pretty much going to be the man to take up the helm of the Stark family.
Yes. Then there's the next eldest, Sansa. That's the one that is betrothed to Joffrey.
Oh, yeah. So Sansa is the eldest daughter. And pretty much at the beginning of the show, she seems to be the very stereotypical maiden of most of your fantasy book stories. She is like the woman that she displays all the womanly qualities that medieval times would love to have. She can sew really good. She is elegant. She is very much interested in being a part of the royalty.
Yep.
So, yeah. Didn't really get much out of her except for she is not exactly like her dad. She's not exactly loyal in the sense of like her dad. Like, he's very loyal to his friends and whatnot and to his family. But with her, she's very loyal to the idea of becoming a queen, and she was not being very loyal to her very little sister, Arya.
Yes.
That's the only daughter that I do remember the name of.
Before we get to that, though, I do want to talk a little bit more about Sansa, because her arc I particularly like, because it's basically about her falling apart of this classical, like, royal idea of
she starts to understand that it's not exactly pretty, it is very corrupt and it's very disgusting,
because she has that very much like Renaissance kind of idea of knights in shining armor and fair maidens and like all this kind of ideas.
And Joffrey destroys that pretty quickly, actually. As soon as like even in like the second episode when he is messing with Arya's friend, the what is he? The
butcher's boy.
The butcher's boy, yes. So he's like trying to pick fights with them, and eventually the butcher's boy, sadly, was he flayed or was he just tortured?
He was mowed down. He tried to run and they caught up to him and killed him.
Gross. I honestly thought he was flayed alive, which is actually probably worse, but you know what? Probably the other way was probably the better. No, flaying just means they would put him on a stick and then they would...
I'm familiar with flaying.
Yeah! Anyway.
Trust me, it'll get dealt with later.
Anyway, yeah. So pretty much, her whole perspective on royalty is just shattered over the course of the first season. She sees how much of a prick Joffrey is, and as well as the royal family. Much more or less, the Lannisters are the ones that destroy any semblance of royalty prestige that she had.
Yep.
And,
Then we got Arya, which you were wanting to talk about.
Okay, so I really enjoy Arya.
Yes.
I honestly... So, fun fact about me, I really do enjoy strong female characters that are displaying... Like, how about this? So, a woman that is displaying stuff that men would usually do.
Yep.
Sometimes it is done pretty badly, but I really enjoy Arya. I am very captivated by her.
Yep.
So pretty much she is the one that is the exact opposite of her sister. She is not interested in the sewing and being elegant. She is not interested in the whole royalty aspect. She's not interested in any of that. She wants to be a fighter, and it was very much obvious when her little brother, was it Danny? I don't know why. I thought his name was Danny.
You're thinking of... Oh, God. You made me forget his name now.
Dang it! It's the youngest brother.
Bran. No, the youngest brother.
The one that got hurt in the end.
Oh, Bran. That's not the youngest.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He's not... Well, yeah.
There's one that's, like, really young.
Okay, but it's like the one that was practicing archery.
Yes, that's Bran.
Bran, okay. This was pretty much... Alright, so Arya's whole case is pretty much established as soon as she hit a bullseye. In the very first scene with her, second scene with her, she hits a bullseye, technically embarrasses Bran in front of his own dad. However, this will go back to Ned and how I'm actually a big fan of his character. He's actually more open about letting Arya do battle-related stuff. So Arya, somewhere around the midpoint of the show, she goes with Ned and her older sister Sansa over to the main city, and Ned gives her the opportunity to learn how to wield a sword from a sword master, and
the first sword of Bravos.
Yep. And so pretty much she actually learned a lot, And honestly, I really, really enjoy Arya. I'm really captivated, and I'm really excited to see what they'll do with her. At the very end of the season, though, she witnesses her dad beheading.
Yep.
She is pretty much forced to go with a bunch of prisoners, cuts off her hair to make sure she looks like a boy.
Yep.
And she kills actually a stable boy.
Yes.
I was shocked about that. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
But then it just makes me start to think, oh yeah, that's right. Everything's in a panic right now because literally their king is ruling like the French Revolution in the Reign of Terror. So pretty much they're having a large amount of panic right now.
Yep.
But Arya runs away, and pretty much I believe that's how we ended off Arya's whole thing.
Yeah, with her running away and staying with the... But we're not done with Arya because we have a couple more characters that interact with her.
Well, yeah, there are other characters that interact with her, but I'm sorry guys if I'm not full in with this. I'm trying to remember the story and everything, but there's so much that goes on. I'm trying to understand it more.
Yes, and then the youngest son, Bran. Well, not the youngest. There's a younger son, but they're a non-player at this time.
Yeah, Bran is pretty much like the youngest one that actually is a player within the story. So
yes.
Bran is pretty much your stereotypical kid. He is pretty much just starting off to become a boy, and he is wanting to be a part of his brother's and his dad's whole shindig.
Yes.
He is very, very interested in trying to appease that whole side of being a Stark and being a very right-hand man to the king, or being very useful in the field of battle. So, at the beginning, though, Bran is not exactly good at it, but then again, things happen where he probably won't be able to ever do it anyway, because Bran, at the beginning of the show, it was established that he likes to climb a lot, and he is very much good at it, and it was making sure to, thankfully, it does establish that whole aspect. Until the king, his wife, and her family, or at least his two younger brothers, well, her two brothers, I shouldn't say they're younger, they all come to the castle, and Bran finds out about the secret of the Lannisters.
Yes.
He stumbles upon Cersei Lannister and what's her brother's name? Jaime Lannister, having an incestuous relationship.
Yes.
Not entirely new thing here with medieval stuff here, but, you know, that's just pretty much where it goes off on. Bran is caught in watching them in the act, and Jaime just holds on to him on the ledge, and he seemed like he was going to let him go, but Cersei didn't want that to happen, so he pushed them off.
And that's how we ended off the first episode.
Yep, that's how we ended off the first episode. So essentially, what we have here is we have a big reveal at the end. Our first sex scene, technically. Weirdly enough, our first sex scene in Game of Thrones. Well, hang on, actually, no, I don't think maybe. Well, one of, I guess. But yeah, so.
Oh wait, no.
I was thinking of.
There's one before with. We're about to get to this character because before we jump to the Lannisters, there's one last Stark to talk about.
Yep.
Catelyn Stark.
What about Jon?
He's not a Stark.
Oh right.
I'm getting to it. I'm going to get to him after.
I forgot. All right, so Catelyn. Okay, Catelyn should have been the wife.
Yes.
All right, so Catelyn, she's actually very much similar to that of Ned. She's very, very loyal.
Yes.
And which I thought, awesome.
The part that I find interesting about her is she has that aspect, but she doesn't have as much the honor aspect. Because Ned is honor to a fault, and she isn't as much.
Oh, yeah. At least, like, she knows when to possibly back away, but she is very much not interested in the whole honor and loyalty aspect of, like, the crown and stuff. Like, she's the one that didn't want Ned to go all the way down south.
Yeah, she's way more family-focused.
Yep, she really loves her family, except for, well, the one that is,
quote, that is not her family.
Yeah, she's very much, that is something that she's very much eyeing up against. Like, she's taking all that frustration onto him, which is, I mean, I guess it does make sense. This is medieval times. But, yes, so she is very much loyal with her family, and she doesn't even care about royalty at all. And it definitely does show that a lot in the dinner scene, actually, in the first episode.
Yeah.
Where she's talking to Cersei, and, like, literally she has very little interest in talking to her at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty much obvious, and, like, and like she was just talking to her about Sansa, and pretty much like she just seemed to poke an eye, like, "What are you talking about, my daughter? I don't want him I don't want your son anywhere near my daughter."
Yeah.
And I just thought, it's pretty much different though from whenever you compare it to the how women were back in the day. They would have loved to have had that whole aspect of like, oh, my daughter's going to be a queen one day.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I would love to do that, but no, she's not interested in that in the slightest. I want to say she probably knows why. Am I correct? Or she's just not interested into it at all?
So explain your process here.
I'm trying to think, like, whenever I was watching it, I was thinking, like, did she have a reason not to like it at all? Like, does she have any experience with it?
Well, she is formerly of a actual, like, family. She is of the Tullys, which are basically, like, the war-ridden zone of, because they're the river country.
The river.
In which case, that's the area you know with the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
That will be the later season. She's part of that family, and she's basically from a family that's been completely scourged by war and has very few members remaining of it.
Yeah. So I'm guessing that's probably her justification on not liking it at all.
Yeah.
She's seen the horror that type of aspect will bring upon, and she doesn't want her children to be a part of it, much more her husband, but doesn't really have a choice in that. So, yeah, I'm very interested about her as well. And she'll even try to do anything in her power to make sure that nothing is taken away from her. So, like, say, when Bran is pretty much bedridden in a coma, she pretty much point the blame at the first Lannister that she saw, which would be Targaryen. We'll talk more about him later. And pretty much, she has him under...
Tyrion.
Tyrion? Wait. Shoot. Tyrion. Why do I keep mixing... This should be a testament on how hard this is for me to remember people, because good lord, their names are similar and they're very close to each other. And there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of characters. You'll get used to it, don't worry.
I hope I will. Anyway, though, that's the Starks.
Well, there's one that's not a Stark.
Technically
two.
Two, yes, but pretty much that's the main Stark cast that are actually of the Stark brand, you could say.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Jon Snow.
Yes.
Or Jon Snow?
Jon Snow.
Okay, perfect.
Jonathan Snow.
Jonathan Snow. Jonathan, soon to hopefully be Snowbeard. That'd be an amazing name, or an amazing look.
Jon Snow.
If he gets a white beard, but he probably won't.
You spilt.
I literally. I'm cutting that out.
No, you're not.
Oh well.
Yes, Jon Snow.
Jon Snow. All right. So Jon Snow is the bastard child of Ned.
Yes.
The dead.
Dead Ned.
Dead Ned. Yep. So pretty much Jon Snow was pretty much the resultant of an affair that Ned had during a war.
Yep.
He went away, and when he came back to his wife, he brought home a child.
Absolutely, yes.
Yep. And we do not know really much of anything about Jon's mom at all.
We know nothing about her.
Yep. Hell, at the very midway, like whenever Jon is talking to Ned for the last time, he asked him about his mother, and he said, "I will tell you when I come back."
Yeah.
Holy crap, that is unfortunate.
There's really good foreshadowing in this show.
Yep.
One of my favorite parts of foreshadowing, before we move on, since we're talking about foreshadowing, one of my favorite scenes in the first season is, do you remember first episode where they're coming back from beheading the man who skipped the wall, broke his oath, and they found a stag in the road, and they were like, what killed the stag? It must have been a mountain lion. No, there's not mountain lions in these woods, and they go off a little bit further, and they find a dead dire wolf.
Oh yeah.
And they find a dead stag. They presume it's a lion, but no, it's the wolf, and the wolf is dead now too.
So what killed the wolf?
Well, it was the stag. The stag jabbed its.
Oh wait. Oh yeah, that's right.
I
forgot about
They killed each other, but they thought it was a lion.
I love that.
It's so good foreshadowing. It's so small, but it's so good.
Oh yeah. But yeah, pretty much. So let's get back to Jon. So Jon Snow.
Yes.
He has pretty much just been like the spearhead of almost... It feels like he's the spearhead of like... Well, no, he is the target of any problem of the Starks that come about. And yeah, Ned's wife does not like him at all for obvious reasons.
Yep.
I understand why for the like their whole setting is like they look down upon that, but like, I don't understand like she doesn't have any ill will towards Ned because he ultimately committed it.
Well, what it is like canonically, what she has said is because he reminds her of the only time he was unfaithful. So anytime she sees him, she's like, "This is the one time. This is the one time."
the one time. But yeah, so John, pretty much he's excluded from any major gatherings at all. Pretty much in the first episode, when the whole party scene is going about, John is literally just outside with a sword and he's just fighting a dummy pretty much until other people start to arrive. Namely, his uncle arrives. His uncle's probably the only one that ever actually showed him any kind of affection, like familial wise, and I actually found that to be interesting.
Well, Arya.
Well, Arya too.
Yeah.
However, the first main one that I saw was, of course, the uncle.
Yes.
And then he had a talk with a Lannister. We'll talk about that soon.
Yes.
I don't know why. I really like that one Lannister.
Yeah.
It's going to be obvious on why I like him a lot sooner or later, but we'll get to it when we get to it.
Yes.
So pretty much John is just excluded from any major function, but he does... excuse me. But he does get an invite to go to the Wall.
Yes.
So pretty much he decides to pretty much do something with himself, and he thought maybe going to the Wall and swearing an oath over there would be a good thing. And so him, the one Lannister, his uncle, they all travel all the way up there, and of course John has his last talk with his dad, asking about his mother. Told I will tell you when I come home. Not gonna happen now. So John pretty much is traveling up to the entire Wall, and he is pretty much going through a lot of training.
Yep.
He meets some new cast of characters, a fat man. I feel bad. Sam. Honestly, whenever I saw Sam, I honestly thought, oh, Samwise Gamgee, maybe? I'm sorry. I love Lord of the Rings, okay? I'm sorry. I had to do that. Anyway, so he meets the Sam, the big lovable oaf.
Yep.
He meets, what's the older man? I know he talked to him at one point.
Oh God, what's his name?
I honestly don't remember, but I just know like his uncle, the big fat man, and the one Lannister is usually who he talks to.
There's two older men. In which case, are you talking about Mormont?
Maybe.
There's Mormont, which is the leader, and then there's
probably
what's his face, which is the one who trains them.
I believe it's the one who trains him.
Okay.
So yeah, so John is pretty much. Literally throughout the entire first season, he's pretty much training and he's learning a little bit about the Wall, and he's just pretty much just going through that entire process.
Yes.
And at the very end of the season, he is pretty much swearing an oath to this giant, was it a tree? It looked like it was a tree with a face, and it looked like it was bleeding, like crying blood or something.
They handle it a few times before the show. I'm surprised that's the first time you notice it. That's in the first episode. You see Ned sharpening a sword at that tree. A different tree, but it's the same type of tree. That tree you will see around the series every once in a while.
I feel like eventually I'm going to rewatch the first season just so I can refresh everything. But anyway, so John is pretty much at the end of the season. He swears an oath to this Wall, and he is pretty much being told to keep it. Did he get news about what's going on in this great war that's just starting?
Yes, he did get news about that at one point. And remember correctly, he tried running away, and then...
Yeah.
But the final character that we will talk about that is a notable player for now at Winterfell is... why am I forgetting his name all of a sudden? Tyrion. Not Tyrion. Theon. My apologies. Theon Greyjoy. The man who is accompanying Robert de War.
I completely forgot about him. I literally forgot about him. I don't remember a thing about him now.
He wound up having a conversation with Tyrion about going to brothels and...
I'm sorry. I can't remember this character. Can you try to help me out with this?
It's not that important. I just wanted to tackle him very quickly.
Okay, go ahead. And if you have anything else to say.
No, I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted to remind you that he exists.
He is a character. That's all I know. So yeah, that's the Starks, or at least the people mostly associated with the Starks.
Then there is the Lannisters.
All right, so let's start off with, I guess, the eldest brother, Jaime.
Jaime Lannister.
Yep. So Jaime Lannister is pretty much whenever I first saw him, he is pretty much what I mentioned earlier, the stereotypical knight in shining armor that is beautiful and lavish. He is handsome. He's very decorated.
A dashing knight.
And they always want to bring up how he is the king killer.
Yes, the King Slayer.
Yep, the King Slayer, Jaime Lannister.
Yep.
Pretty much, yeah. That was his whole entire thing. His whole entire thing. What we were hinted at about was that right there, about how he killed the previous king, the Targaryen king. What was his name? The one that was apparently crazy.
Oh yes. It's like Aemon or something like that.
Either way, yeah. So he killed him.
There's like 1,000 Targaryen names in the series. I can't remember all of them. It's the Mad King. We were all calling the Mad King is the Mad King.
Mad King is dead. He murdered by Jaime.
Yes.
And essentially, yeah. However, Jaime, at the very end of the first episode, we are revealed about something. He has a thing for his sister.
Yes.
And all I could think was Sweet Home Alabama, and I just wanted to have a laugh at that. Too bad it's not that much of an original joke.
Yeah.
But, pretty much, yeah, that was, he pretty much would do anything for his sister. I don't know if I would say the same for his brother. He probably just tolerates his little brother.
A little bit more than that. He did like a couple. I wouldn't say because of the stories that we get shared. We don't get to see it directly, but from a couple of stories we were shared that he likes his brother, but not as much as his sister.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
That should be obvious. But yeah, Jaime, pretty much, he is your stereotypical knight in shining armor. Beautiful, clad, decorated, all the words. But man, is he a prick.
Oh, yeah.
He is a prick.
Yeah. Second biggest one in the show, probably. Maybe third. Of the first season.
Probably. Shoot, that's hard, actually. Because I already know who I would say number one is the biggest.
Yeah, that's obvious.
That's obvious, but
I feel the second contender is the Targaryen dude.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about.
I feel he's second contender and Jaime's probably third.
Yeah, I would probably make that. I'd probably agree with that because I know Jaime's going to last longer in this instance in the show because he didn't die. Yes, he didn't die in the season. Meanwhile, the other guy, he did die, so yeah. I guess we could probably say, yeah, he's number two, but Jaime's going to climb more after we talk about him. But yeah, that's pretty much, yeah, Jaime. So now, Cersei?
Yes.
What's her name? Okay, so Cersei.
The second one. She's a twin.
Oh, the twin. Wait, they're twins?
Yes, remember correctly, it was a twin incestuous relationship.
Oh, okay. I wasn't quite aware. I was thinking, Jaime's the eldest, and probably Cersei's the youngest by like a year or so.
No, they're twins.
I don't remember hearing that, but I guess I missed that dialogue. So yeah, Cersei.
Yeah, so if you remember, they said at the very, very beginning when they first introduced it, that's Jaime Lannister, the Queen's twin sister, the Queen's twin brother.
Oh, well, I guess I missed that.
It's very much a passing dialogue. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. All right, so Cersei. She is the wife, or quote, queen of Robert.
Yes.
Robert is her husband. He is the king.
Yep.
He rose after Jaime murdered the original king.
Yep.
And pretty much, yeah, Cersei is power hungry.
Yep.
Yeah, immediately whenever I watched it and like whenever I heard her talking to Ned's wife about Sansa, I just thought, this woman sounds power hungry. She sounds very power hungry indeed. And I just thought, I'm going to have to keep my eye on her. And yeah, she'll literally do anything for the throne.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what it is. She'll do whatever it takes. And it would be even the most extreme thing. She tried to have the young Stark that caught them. I completely forgot his name again. Bran. When she found out that he was just in a coma, she said, let's try to kill him fast, or else he'll wake up and he'll probably tell on us. So, she tried to do that. She didn't. She tried anything to get rid of anybody that, quote, challenged her way to the throne. Yeah, she's probably the fourth biggest prick on the show. Fourth or second. And honestly, I don't know. In top five, you could probably interchange each one. You can make a good case for him. But, yeesh. But yeah, Cersei, that's honestly the biggest thing I got from her. Was like, yeah, she'll do anything.
Yeah.
To get what she wants. And It's gonna get ugly soon, I guess.
And then finally, the youngest child of the Lannisters.
Or at least you could say the one that could be considered, quote, a bastard, since you remember that one piece of dialogue. That's the only piece of dialogue that I always remembered from him. But, yeah, so this is probably...
some really good ones. I'll recount you when we get to that.
Yep. So this is probably my favorite character throughout the entire first season. Besides, like, outside the Starks, I was a big fan of Ned, but he is dead. So now I have Arya and Jon Snow left. But now we have the other one, the dwarf. Crap. Tyrion.
Yep.
Tyrion Lannister, the dwarf, or the imp, as they like to call him. Yep. So Tyrion is pretty much a guy that is not capable of doing anything combat related, but he does have something that not other characters really have.
Yes.
He's got the smarts. He knows a lot. He knows the inner workings of whatever goes on between the king and his inner circle. He knows it all. He knows every little bit of it, and he knows how to work around it. He's pretty much like your stereotypical politician that knows what's going on, and he can maneuver around anything. He knows a lot.
Yes.
So, why do I like this character? Well, I just like characters like that. I always like a character that just sits down and reads, and they can actually just deduce anything that's going on pretty easily.
Like, one line I think that would have stood out for you from him, that I'm surprised I didn't mention, is, a mind needs a book like a sword needs a whetstone.
Say that again?
A mind needs a book like a sword needs a whetstone.
Oh, yeah. Shoot, I'm sad I didn't remember that line exactly.
I thought you were going to bring that up. I was like, this is a very Tanner line.
Yeah. But, I don't know. Sometimes some of these lines just go over my head. But, yeah, that is a very good line. I do adore that line. Well, now that I remember it now. But thank you. So, yeah, pretty much, Tyrion is pretty much the man with the brain, but not much of the brawn to back it up.
Yes.
So, pretty much, well, what happens to him pretty much throughout this entire show? Well, he is the only one that seems outside of the whole, everybody else in the show besides the uncle, of course, he's the only one that has sympathy for Jon Snow because he can relate to him a lot.
Yes.
So this was one of the main things that I got from Tyrion was that he understands what it's like to be considered seen like the child that the father does not want.
Yes.
Because Tyrion is an imp, or a shorter person, and he can't do anything at all. He can't fight. He's not like his brother whatsoever. But he more than makes up for it by what he knows in his head. He understands everything that goes on around him. But he always said this to... He did say this to Jon, and I always chuckle at this line. A dwarf is always a bastard in the son of a father.
Yes.
Or in the sight of a father's eyes. And I just thought, he's got a good point. And so pretty much, yeah. So Tyrion... I'm trying to make sure I remember all this. Lord have mercy. I'm really going to need to rewatch the first season. There's a lot that goes freaking on. But Tyrion, that's the big thing I always got out of him. Was like, he's going to be a very important character. And if he dies, I'm going to kill you, Bryce, because I loved this character.
Sure.
Cool. Cool. But yeah, Tyrion is pretty much, he is your character that is pretty much, he can pretty much say anything that is going on, and you just have to think, oh, that makes sense. He actually knows. He knows his stuff, and he's always usually seen with either a book, a big mug of alcohol or booze, or just having a woman on his lap.
Yep.
He is a ladies' man, I'll give him that. Surprising that women like the imp, I guess. Heck, the first scene that we see of him was him at a brothel.
Yep. And finally, the last Lannister that we'll be covering. There's technically two others that we do see, but we're only going to be covering this last one. Tywin Lannister, the father.
Oh, yeah. I wish I remember more about him, honestly. But
he's the one who's skinning a stag while talking with Jaime to never mind the sheep.
Sadly, I'm trying to remember everything. Please, can you just... Is that all that you wanted to mention of him? Or
There's quite a bit. So he's handled in the later episodes. Once again, another really good foreshadowing thing where he is in the process of skinning a stag when we first see him. Another great symbol. Really good symbolism in the show. And Jaime's talking about, like, well, I had to, like, attack Ned in the streets. And he's like, why? Why would you bother? There's no reason to bother doing any of this. Like, do not mind the opinions of others. We have a goal. Do the goal. Don't get hot-headed. Don't do any actions. Just stick to plans. Don't do anything dumb.
Yeah.
And that's basically the character. He is someone who's like, we do not mind anything else. Like, all of this garbage that's going on in the world, that's not our problem.
So pretty much he's the one guy that's like, just let things happen and don't care.
Well, he's more, we have a goal. We should stick to our goal, because he's also the one giving about, like, we all die, and what's left behind? Legacy. Us fixing this now won't help our legacy.
Okay, so yeah, he's all about the honor, at least. Like, oh, I care more about what people think of me than actually doing something about it, so let whatever happens, but protect our own asses.
Yeah, he's protecting the family's assets, and particularly the legacy. Because he's constantly going on about that during the show. Particularly that one speech with Jamie, where it's like, do not mind the opinions of the sheep. It's very interesting because you're seeing this kind of side of him where he's being, what's the word? Hippocratic. Because he's talking about don't mind the opinions of others, but his whole goal is to secure a legacy that is entirely focused around the opinions of others. So it's a very interesting character where he has that Hippocratic idea of what now doesn't matter, the opinions of people now don't matter, the opinions of people in the future matter.
Makes sense. That's interesting. However, that isn't really the last Lannister that we'd have to put some focus on, though.
All right.
You forgot about Joffrey.
Oh, yeah, well, he's a Baratheon.
Well, technically, yeah, he's a Baratheon. Well, technically, yes, he is a Baratheon by name, but
I
by
thought you were going to
blood.
mention Loras Lannister, and I was like, okay.
No.
That's the squire that the king keeps yelling at.
A very important character, of course.
We wind up seeing him sleep with Cersei at one point.
Oh, wow.
If you remember correctly.
I don't remember. There's a lot of sex scenes in this damn show. You think I'm going to remember every... Well, there's only like 2 or 3 sex scenes that I actually remembered. And one of those was actually kind of a criticism of the show, but we'll get to that later.
Yes.
It's honestly kind of probably minor, but I had a bit of a problem with it, but we'll get to that when we get to that.
We're almost done with the characters, in which case, wrapping this up before we get... So it's probably going to be the Baratheons, the Small Council, and what's going on the opposite end of the globe.
Yeah. Alright, so real quick, we can run through Robert.
So it's Robert and his brother, but one of them's only ever talked about.
Yeah. Okay, so like, how about this? Let's talk about Robert.
Yes.
And we'll talk about the brother a little bit, but then we'll also talk about, I guess, Joffrey real quick. Well, how about this? Let's just say about Joffrey. Well, Robert is pretty much our king. And at the very end of the season, he is pretty much dead.
Yes.
But we do get a little bit of stuff about him from beforehand. He was Ned's right. He is Ned is his right-hand man in everything.
Like best friends to the end.
Best friends forever. Literally, they got through hell together. They went to war together, and they've done a lot of things together. And they even shared some familial ties for a bit because Robert was supposed to marry Ned's sister.
Yes.
But Ned's sister passed away, and he still loves her way more than Cersei. Obviously, yes. He only probably married Cersei for political reasons.
Yep. But
he even went as far as to go to Ned's sister's tomb and even just caresses the statue. I mean, I honestly felt weirded out by it, but then I thought, oh, wait, that's probably the only way he'd be able to feel of her, because if he tried to do something else about it, it would be considered necrophilia. Yeah. So, yeah, but pretty much, yeah, like, Robert was pretty much still torn about it. Very much obvious. But pretty much, yeah, we do know a few things about him. One, he's fat.
Yeah.
He's a drunk.
Too fat for his armor.
Yep. He is a drunk.
Yep.
And he is a very much adulterer. Probably to an annoyance of Cersei, but at the same time, she probably does not care at all. Because I doubt she even has really any attraction to Robert at all. She just sees him as a piece to the final goal.
Yep.
Pretty much, it's pretty much all we get about Robert. Is that he is like Robert is the king.
We also get we get a little bit of pieces about because he's the one who started the previous war.
Yeah, he was the one that started the previous war, and he took over the throne after Jaime killed the king. He was originally, I think, Jaime was also like the protector of the king, but then he betrayed him at the very end.
That's why people keep bringing it up, is because he swore an oath to protect the king, and then he's the one that killed the king.
Ironic. I love some irony in this show.
That's why everyone keeps reminding him he's the Kingslayer, because he broke his oath.
Yep.
The oath breaker.
Yep. But yeah, Robert is pretty much that right there. He was the one that started the whole war that began this whole almost really at least led to a sequence of events that we are getting to at the very end of the season.
Yep.
Once he's dead, there's the whole succession crisis.
Yes, so we now have to deal with what are his 3 or 4 relatives. I'm going to say all 4 for this current instance. In which case, we only know about this in talking, which is his second oldest brother, or the now what would be the actual successor, Stannis Baratheon. He's only ever talked about, so we don't really have a character there.
Yep.
All we really know about him is that apparently he's a very good soldier.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we got.
Yep.
Then after that, we got Renly Baratheon. He is the man on the small council, and he is also the gay one.
I do remember that scene now. Yeah, he did have a gay scene with him, and I thought it's also pretty funny whenever you look back on like the early 2010s. Like right now, like, being gay is a lot more accepting in today's society.
Yes.
Even though back then, even though this was like around 2010 when the episode probably aired, geez Louise, I feel like that took a lot of balls to actually do.
Oh yeah.
So, not gonna complain. I'm not complaining about that at all. I just thought, that's cool. But pretty much, yeah. We have the gay one.
Yep.
There's no way he's going to have the throne because it should be obvious on why he's not going to have the throne. Because it seemed like he was seen more openly homosexual about it. And what was the other? Was that the
then,
we have the next
we
brother.
have Joffrey Baratheon.
Oh, Joffrey. All right, so this is I've always heard about Joffrey, and I've already been spoiled on some things about him. But I didn't know immediately whenever I saw his quote uncle. Wink, and his mother, I just thought to a second, and I looked at his hair, and I thought, wait a minute, why is his hair blonde if his dad's black, and that's the more dominant trait of the family?
Yes, the seed is strong.
Yep. And that's what I was wondering. I was like, wait, oh. And I knew, like, they had the big reveal at the towards the end of the season, and I thought, this is pretty obvious, but I'm just going to go with it. Because they even hinted at it in one of the first few episodes. We saw the bastard son of Robert.
Yes.
We saw that he had...
Which I'm about to tackle.
Yeah, we were about to tackle with him, but we saw him in his darker hair, and I thought, wait, this is hinting at something. And then I thought, oh, Jaime's the father.
Yep.
Joffrey is an incestuous bastard. Oh, God.
Yes, in which case the final Baratheon, which technically is a bastard, so he doesn't have the Baratheon name, which is Gendry Baratheon, which we saw leaving with Arya up to leave.
Yep. Yeah, he didn't die. Okay.
Yeah, no, he left with Arya.
Okay, I was just making sure. So, yeah.
Because you remember correctly, she was getting beat up by bullies, and he was like, mind your own, how'd you get that sword, and all that.
Yeah. And that was pretty much, that's the only scene I remember him of that, besides this, like, whenever we first meet.
The scene with the blacksmith and the scene where he's now with Arya.
Yeah, okay. So that's how we have the whole Baratheons right there.
Yes, and then obviously Ned bothered trying to set up that whole thing where he would succeed.
Yeah.
But that didn't work.
Yeah, pretty obvious. However, it was interesting, though, that Ned started this whole issue was when he was writing down the testament of Robert when he was on his deathbed. He was writing down, like, oh, Joffrey is the one to succeed, but Ned wrote differently. Yes. Whoever is worthy of succeeding.
The true heir is what
he wrote. True heir. And, well, yeah, I just said worthy of, but I thought, oh, wait, probably should be true heir, I guess.
I believe he wrote true heir. Something about an heir.
Yeah, something about an heir. So that's how the whole conundrum started to happen, and, yeah.
And then finally, well, not finally, I guess, very briefly, the small council, which is going to be Varys, the spider.
Sadly, I'm trying to remember these names and characters.
It's the bald one. Bald, a little more tubby.
Okay, yeah. Like, he looked like he was wearing a robe and he was like this.
Yep.
Okay.
The eunuch.
Okay.
And we'll also have Littlefinger. Goatee.
Oh, yeah, the goatee guy. I like the design. I actually really loved his design a whole lot. And he was the one that ultimately... He was the one that portrayed Ned.
Yes.
Okay.
Held a knife up to his throat. You should never have trusted me.
Oh my God. Yep. So we have ourselves the 5th worst bastard of the show already. What else is in the council? I'm trying.
Technically we already covered Renly.
Yes.
And Jon Snow was the head of it.
Okay.
So that's why I wanted to quickly cover the small council. This is 2 characters, and I knew you wanted to talk about one of them, so I just wanted to quickly cover that.
Yep.
And then finally, in the far off lands,
the Targaryens.
There is 4 characters of note.
Yes. Yes, now I remember, yeah. Alright, so...
Let's start with the oldest. Well, oldest of the family.
The oldest brother?
Yes. So glad he dies this season because I can never remember his name.
Viserys?
Yeah, I think it's Viserys.
Viserys, whatever. Either way, I didn't care about him at all because he was a fucking prick. And and it was pretty obvious immediately in the first scene with him. So he had a scene with his sister, and I thought, oh my god, are we going to have another incestuous relationship? Kind of like that, but not in the same sense. He only is using his youngest sister, Daenerys, as a way to the throne. He's very much similar to that of Cersei. He will do anything it takes to get back to the throne.
I would say to a lot more stronger degree.
Very much.
Literally anything.
Literally anything. But pretty much, yeah, he is very much impatient.
Yes.
He is, and here's another thing that I would actually say that he also very much lacks. He has no brain, and he's probably actually the biggest thing he doesn't have. He doesn't really have the strong leadership will to be a king. He only has like the will to want to be, but can he actually do it?
Yeah.
He does not have that. It was seen pretty obvious pretty easily. It was like, oh yeah, like this guy does not have anything. Like hell, not even just based off of looks alone, because like he is very stringly armed. He doesn't look like he would be a good king. He doesn't have that quality that you would need for somebody to be a king or a leader. Yeah,
in which case it makes sense because he was like a very young kid when his family was killed and was like ran away and was like basically raised in a small house being told his whole life, you're gonna be king, you're gonna be king, you're gonna be king. And he's like, it's only a matter of time before like I go back and claim it for my own. It's my birthright.
Yep.
He wasn't given any resources. He wasn't taught by an actual king. He was just put in a palace and told you're gonna be king.
Yep, pretty much like. Hell, he probably didn't even really have a teacher to actually teach him stuff like some of the things that if you were going to be a king, like the main things that I would figure that you would have to learn about, you'd probably learn about the arts, and especially you'd have to learn a lot about philosophy.
Yes.
Because like that's usually how I associate kings are. They had to learn a lot about philosophy and governance. This guy has no idea what the hell he's on about. The only thing he would probably be more interested in is about like say military tactics, but I don't even think he knows anything about that at all either.
Yeah, no, because diplomacy is like...
Diplomacy is not his... I was going to say policy.
This is his drop stat.
Yeah, drop stat, yes. He has very little...
It's that menu on Crusader Kings 2 where you see someone's diplomacy and you're just like,
I was honestly thinking of Constitution in D&D or something. Oh. It has like a -5 or something.
Yeah, it's like he has 3 hit points.
Oh, God. But yeah, literally... Thank God he dies at the end, because, like, for one, his character is not very memorable, except for how much of a dick he is. And he probably has the best death that I've seen in an entire show.
It's very good.
Yeah. So pretty much at the very end of the show, he is threatening his sister with her child inside, and her husband does not take very kindly of that, so he says the only English line that he ever says in the show, besides that one word that he says at the beginning, no. A crown for a king, and he pours melted gold onto his head. You know, there was one thing I actually thought about whenever I was watching that.
King.
Yep. The one thing I remember thinking about during that scene was like, how did the gold melt that fast?
Yeah.
That was what I was thinking that the entire time whenever the gold was melting that he was doing that. I was like, I don't think that's how...
It would not that fast.
Yeah, and I was thinking, I don't even think the fire was even hot enough to melt gold. Like, what is gold's melting temperature?
It's actually fairly low. It's not, like, extremely low. It's lower than iron, I remember that.
Yeah. I don't know.
I can't remember. I'm fairly sure it probably could. It would have taken forever, like all night for that to melt, so it's just kind of like...
Imagine just holding on to him all night just to do that one thing. It would have been funny. But yeah, he poured melting gold on him, and that was the last we saw of him. But it was weird that as soon as like he poured gold onto him, it started to literally harden immediately, and then once he dropped his head, it was on a freaking ground, and then you just still hear that chink.
Yep.
I just thought, this is the most unrealistic thing ever, but I'm willing to forgive it just to say thank God he's gone.
It's one of those where it's like, this is stupid, but it's awesome.
Yes, that's how a lot of
it's a very wrestling moment where it's like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But it's epic.
Spoiler alert for wrestling stuff. Anyway, yeah, so he probably has the most memorable death in the entire first season, without a doubt.
Oh, yeah.
But thank God he's gone. But now we can get on to his sister.
Yes.
Daenerys. She really doesn't have much of, like, say, speaking stuff in the first few episodes, but she... How do I get a read on her? Because, like, she has... I feel so horrible for her throughout all of the first season because she is forced into a relationship she doesn't really want. Then she says, I might as well make this work, so she tries to learn the Dothrakian language and the culture and just wear the stuff and whatnot, and even tried to bear a child.
The stallion to count the world.
Yep. And pretty much, like, at the very end of the season, her husband is dead.
Yep.
He goes brain dead. And she loses the child.
Yep.
And she even tries to save Drogon, her husband.
Khal Drogo.
Yep. That did not happen. That did not work. At the very end, she said, I am going to burn with the body of my husband and the... what's her name? What was the title called for the woman that was trying to save?
Oh, everyone called her the witch.
I honestly would probably say the witch would make more sense. However, everybody was thinking she was going to kill herself, but she said, a dragon does not burn.
Yeah.
And I just thought, oh, I think I know what's going to happen. And I also thought this was actually interesting, too, when she mentioned about her brother and how he died. It was like...
The dragon cannot be killed by fire.
Mm-hmm. However, he was technically killed by gold being poured on him. So I don't think that really makes a lot of sense in the end of it, but I get where she's going for.
Yeah.
But, yeah, she literally takes the dragon eggs and just lays on there. Literally hatches them, which was kind of odd to me because I thought these were supposed to be petrified, I thought.
I think that's the thing here is that they are petrified eggs, but she, by being a Targaryen, she has the dragon blood in her. She's like, no, these are not actually petrified. I can actually hatch these in some manner. I just have to burn them. Because you see her throughout the entire first season. She keeps applying more and more fire to them.
Oh, yeah, like, throughout the entire time, like, whenever, like, the first thing she noticed, like, whenever she was first, when she was first committing the act with Drogon inside the tent, she was being forced into it. She was just looked over at these eggs, and there was fire around them, and she just kept thinking, and I was like, it was pretty obvious, like, what they were trying to point to was like, oh, these might be able to hatch. And she was just plotting a little bit in the background. So she is really smart in that aspect. However, she, of course, does not have the looks. She's very similar to that of her brother. But she has the intelligence and the forethought of thinking, hey, I could probably do something with this. So at the very end of the season, she burns her husband's corpse and the witch. She takes the dragon eggs with her into the fire. And at the very end, everybody sees her naked, but she is not burned, not hurt at all, but she has 3 little dragon babies.
Indeed.
Yep. And so she is, quote, the mother of the dragons.
Yes.
And I just thought, what a fun way to end the season with that. So, yeah.
Now, Khal Drogo.
Yep, so everybody knows who Khal Drogo is. I only know him mostly nowadays for being Aquaman.
I know him as Khal Drogo.
I know. I figured that much. But I only saw Jason Momoa most of the time whenever he was as Aquaman. I've never seen the movie Aquaman. Do not ask me how I feel. Never seen it. We only saw Justice.
So I've only seen like 5 minutes as him as Aquaman.
We've seen him before as Aquaman in Justice League.
Oh God, I forgot about that.
Yeah, yeah. That should tell you how much memorable that movie was.
It was awful.
Yep. But yeah, so Jason Momoa. He plays as Drogo. I would assume this is his biggest breakout role. Like everybody, this would probably be the one that I really only know of his older stuff as, because like now he is Aquaman. He does other stuff, but I feel like that was his breakout stuff was being Drogo. Even though he doesn't do a lot, he only has the appearance and everything that you would just need to know about him through his appearance. Can't understand Dothraki worth a damn. Yeah. There's probably no real way to learn it because I don't know if Martin.
No, there is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Dothraki is an actual learnable language. Game of Thrones has 2 learnable languages in it.
Well, this is gonna be fun.
People actually speak Dothraki.
Oh, cool. But yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So Drogon is pretty much the head of the Dothraki clan. Yep. He has. One of my favorite tidbits was the translator. He was saying if you look at his hair, he has so many of these things. Like what is it?
Braids.
The braids on his. Is my chair broke? Yeah, it's probably broke. This chair sucks. Anyway. So, okay, we're good now. All right, so yeah, Jason Momoa plays as Count Drogon, or Drogo. I always think it's Drogon, but I guess it is Drogo.
Khal Drogo.
Khal Drogo. Can't understand him worth a damn, but all you need to know is about his overall appearance, and I think awesome. I love his character design. His character design is probably my favorite out of everybody's in this entire first season, easily, because there's so much more going on. And it seems interesting though, because like at the beginning he seems to really not care about Daenerys as a person, but once he sees that she is actually trying to understand him and is adapting to the Dothraki lifestyle and language, he gives a rat's ass about her.
Yeah.
Entirely. I mean, it was pretty obvious he was going to care whenever she said that he's going to bear a child. She's going to bear a child, but when she's being threatened by her brother, and he seems to not really care about the brother. He just seems to be amused by him. He probably calls him an idiot. Like, oh, the fool is here. He probably sees him as like the jester or something. Yeah. But whenever he points the sword at Daenerys' stomach, oh dear fucking god. He looked like he was about to kill him, and he did eventually do that. But however, at the very end of the season, he gets injured, and he is eventually pretty much brain dead because of the witch. And that was pretty much the end of him. I was honestly sad when he died. I was like, damn, I'm going to miss him.
And the final character we're probably going to be covering, Jorah Mormont.
That would be the translator, wouldn't it?
That would be the assistant, so the one that is like, he's kind of translating a little bit. He's also the one that like stopped him from robbing the eggs. He's the one that watched Dany be burned by the fire. He's basically the man in iron armor that the Dothraki are looking at.
Isn't he the one with like he had like orange hair?
Yeah. I was like, yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to remember for character design.
Yeah.
So yeah, he wasn't he also like a spy of some sort?
Yes.
Okay, so he actually seemed to actually care about Daenerys at the very end.
Yeah.
It's like he had a very interesting arc of like, oh, I'm only just here just to observe the Lannisters and make sure they're not up to any funny business. But then at the very end of the season, he actually seemed to give a shit.
Yes.
And so he wanted to save them, and he seemed to started to align with the Targaryens at the end. So there we go. We have another Oathbreaker in the show.
I mean, he was already a confirmed Oathbreaker, so...
Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much all I remember of him.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a character to keep in mind because, like, he played like a minor role at the first start of the season here. He's going to play a minor role in the next season as well, so...
Yeah. All right. Anything else? I don't think there was anything else.
That's all the characters, but we might as well go through the story now.
All right. So the story. So at before the show started, we were told about the war that happened.
Yes.
Between the Lannister, well, not really Lannisters actually. I almost said Lannister.
Well, we're also going through this. We also probably should give a little bit of what we think about each of the arcs as we're going through. Because we already gave our thoughts about like the characters and what we think of them, and so we should do that about the arcs as well.
Okay. So which arc should we go for first?
Let's start with the first arc, the one that we're introduced by, which is basically Ned being taken to the capital, King's Landing, him finding the plot, and basically leading to both him and the King's death.
Yep. So pretty much this is a pretty standard arc of like, oh, he is learning more as this whole thing goes on. Very short time while as the King's literal right-hand man.
Yep.
But he finds out so much things super quickly, and he is like thinking, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. There's so much to reveal. Because like all this is like stuff that he cares about his friend and he doesn't want anything bad to happen to him, but that did not happen. So pretty much Ned's whole thing was he is led astray and then he sees the downward spiral of everything around him crumble, losing his best friend, and then never seeing his family again.
Yep.
And then he loses his own life. That pretty much happened, and it's like, yeah, that's where we get dead Ned.
Yep.
And so yeah, he's pretty more or less like...
One thing that I do want to point out as well... Oh, I forgot about one of the council members. Master Pycelle. Man with a big white beard.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay, anyway.
Yeah, I just don't remember him.
Anyway, so yeah. So Ned is pretty much, I would just say, like, your main, like... this was like a pretty tragic whole arc that he went through.
Yeah. My favorite part about the arc is at the very end, he's like... This is the only time you see him lie. Where he's like, yes, I tried taking the throne for myself because he's wanting to save, like, his daughters. And then he still gets killed anyways.
Oh, yeah.
The one time he lies, it doesn't save him.
Mm-hmm. So pretty much that just shows everybody shows us, the audience, as, like,
it doesn't even matter if they're telling the truth or not. You'll still probably die no matter what.
Yeah.
So anything can happen. And even like the whole death of Ned, it's like anybody can die in the show because it really showed like Ned was going to be our main character to see through, but nope.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Dead.
And we see his head on the stake.
Yep.
Pretty upsetting. So yeah, that's the whole Ned's whole spiel. It's like his whole thing, his whole arc is pretty much what I boil down to as downward spiral, and oh boy.
Yep. The second arc we're also seeing is the attempted assassination of Bran.
Pretty much, yeah. That whole thing, like, I was honestly surprised on how fast Bran actually woke up. I honestly thought he was going to wake up towards the end of the season.
Yeah, he wakes up about midway through.
Yeah, it was weird. I was like, I honestly expected him to wake up midway, not at close to the end of the season, like episodes 8 or 9. But whenever he woke up, I was like, oh, all right, then let's see what happens. He doesn't remember anything, though.
Yeah, no.
He doesn't remember a thing. But pretty much, yeah, he is no longer able to walk.
Yep, a cripple.
Yep, he is now a cripple. Hey, he's like Tyrion. He is now.
Yeah, because Tyrion gives a really good line at one point of I have a fondness for cripples, bastards, and broken things.
Oh man. But yeah, the whole thing with that. Pretty much that whole arc just revealed in how far Cersei and Jaime will go through to get power. At least mostly Cersei. Mostly. I don't think Jaime really cares.
Yeah.
He's just doing whatever to make his sister happy.
Yep.
But Cersei, this whole thing just really shows on how far Cersei will go to attain power.
Yep.
Anything at all. Even if it's the death of an own child.
Yeah. In which case, we wind up seeing at the point during the arc, Catelyn go to King's Landing to talk and finding out that Tyrion's knife was used to attempt the second assassination.
Yes. And
then we have a whole ordeal with Tyrion being taken to the Eyrie, him facing a trial by combat.
Yep.
And him surviving.
Yeah, he survived. I was like, he just like bowed at the very end and he just left. And I was like, okay, I guess that's what happens now. Okay, cool. I'm trying to remember if there was anything else in this arc. I don't think there was.
So the main thing to focus on for this arc, it does a lot more kind of setup stuff. We get introduced to the Eyrie, we get that character, which we only see for like an episode. In which case they're a nut job.
Yeah. Oh man. Alright, what's the next arc we got?
After that, we might as well jump over to the Wall.
Yes.
In which case they found whites.
The White Walkers?
Yes, because they hauled a corpse in from the north, and it animated beyond the Wall.
Oh yeah. So yeah, this is a whole thing that's revealing more secrets about the Wall.
Yes.
Or at least what's beyond the Wall. Because they always hinted at the White Walkers, and they don't really say much about the White Walkers at all. It seems like there's a giant mystery to behold here. Like, what are the White Walkers, and are they really alive, or are they real? Because at the very beginning of the show, we had that guy that was saying, like, I saw the White Walkers, I saw them, and Ned just said, you broke your oath and you must die. And they don't go any further than that. They don't even bother to question him. And pretty much the whole idea of the Wall is like there's probably more beyond this wall that's going to be revealed later on. But we already know one thing about it. If you died inside of the Wall, then you're brought back in to be reanimated. That's the only thing I got out of it. I was like, huh. This Wall is symbolic, not just really a symbolic thing, but it's also a whole magical force, as it were. Like it could do more than people think. So I don't know what else there is to say.
That's like the main thing of the arc. Also, Benjen went missing beyond the Wall, and that's kind of where the arc we wound up missing out on. Whereas like Benjen is missing beyond the Wall. John is now being given the chance to go beyond the Wall like he wanted.
Wait, Benjen is
Benjen Stark.
Oh, the
uncle.
The uncle. Okay. So yeah, John is gonna go search for his uncle, and he's gonna have the fun adventure of looking beyond the Wall.
Yes. Also, while we were at the Wall, we also had the small mini thing of whether John wanted to break his oath to fight his brother's war.
Oh yeah.
Where Sam and all the others hauled him back and gave him the oath again, and he came back and was like, honor made you leave, honor made you stay.
I'm sorry, y'all. I am really having a big problem with this. I'm trying to remember all this stuff here.
Really good lines.
Really good lines.
On a major lead, on a major stay.
Oh, man. All right. Yeah,
Then,
okay. And what's next?
moving over to the war arc a little bit, because Arya, Sansa, and Ned are imprisoned at the capital, and it's quite possible that the Starks have figured out, like, we fairly sure the Lannisters attempted assassination, we're going to war. And we are seeing basically the start of that, and with Robert basically leading people to war and successfully capturing another key character.
What was the key character again?
Jaime.
Oh.
Remember?
To be honest, not really.
So, remember how Tyrion was leaving the Eyrie, he got a bunch of mountain people. It was like, okay, we're going to use you to fight a war. And then he went over there and he like got himself a woman to sleep with at night. And they were like, you have to fight with the war. You have to fight with us for the battle. And he was like, okay, I guess I'm doing that. And
oh yeah, he gets knocked out and he doesn't remember everything. But the the battle ended.
Yes, and he tells him, we won this battle, but we fought the decoy. Robert was with his 20,000 other men. It'll be hard cut to him coming back from a battle carrying Jaime Lannister behind him.
Oh. Well, they call it somebody important.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Alright. What is another arc?
So moving on from that, we also have what's going on over on the other lands.
Yep. So we have the Targaryens.
Yes.
So pretty much most of that whole entire arc was more or less centered around Daenerys.
Yes.
And she is pretty much having to pretty much try to adapt to a new lifestyle, but eventually she has to plan out like how she's going to get these eggs to hatch. And I don't know, her whole entire thing was like trying to accept this new life that she's doing. Like everything's being enacted because of her brother wanting to become king.
Yep.
So she's doing all that, but she obviously does not like her brother at all because, of course, why would she? But pretty much she does learn to accept some parts of it. She starts to understand a little bit about... I forgot the word now.
I don't know what you're going for.
I don't know either. Look, I just know, look, Daenerys, she is a lot more methodical, and she was planning out everything. And at the very end, she seemed to prove everything that she was thinking out was right. She did not burn. She got the baby dragon eggs to hatch. And she is now the queen of the dragons, and she is literally about to have her whole army that her brother wished he had. And pretty much, yeah, she's about to go into a giant invasion and be a part of this whole battle as well. So a 3-way battle as soon as it happened.
Now, we've covered most of the arcs there. There's also technically a mini arc that we might as well cover that Renly is basically attempting to get the throne for himself, and whenever Ned asked him for reinforcements, he fled the capital with all his men.
Oh, yeah.
So that's like a mini arc there.
Coward.
Then, finally, is there anything of these story arcs that stands out really to you? Like anything you particularly enjoyed? Anything that you were like, this didn't really work, I didn't like that too much? Story-wise, what do you...
I honestly just thought the story was mostly pretty strong. It mostly took a very slow amount of time to get really going, but everything started to fall apart as soon as we get to the end. Not fall apart as in the story broke down. Story broke down bad. I mean no, everything inside the world
began breaking down.
Everything began breaking down, and oh boy! So we have all of our characters in a giant disarray. War is breaking out. Everything is going to shits. Joffrey is a prick. I can't emphasize more on how much of a prick this guy is, but yeesh. So pretty much, this whole war is literally about to become a giant world war, as it were. Everybody claiming a right to the throne.
Yep.
And I'm just thinking, I'm excited to see what the hell happens.
So, then, after that, is there any standout scenes that you want to talk about?
if I can remember some of these scenes, I would love to. But it's just everything flows in such a way as like, oh, we're moving on to certain things. But I think there's one scene that I just remembered that I know it was a sex scene. However, this would be like my one and only criticism that I kind of felt annoyed about, but take it for what you will. It was a sex scene where you had the guy in the goatee and he was watching two women going at it.
Yep.
Yes. He's just explaining everything about his life and how he doesn't like the Starks and whatnot. And it's thinking like, good Lord, all this exposition while people are having sex right here in this part. And it's like, this feels so awkward. And it's like, is this really how it was in the books, or am I just being...
I'm not sure. To my knowledge, this is them doing writing to make dialogue that was in the books more approachable, because they didn't want to just be one scene versus him talking the whole time. So they were like, we'll give all the people a short attention span of sex scene.
Okay. I mean, I guess... it just feels like it would be a lot more distracting, because you see two people having sex...
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't like that scene either.
Yeah, because like look, I don't mind exposition and stuff like that. I mean, like, look, I'm a fan of Shakespeare, and like that's what happens in like 90% of their plays is like, oh, they'll just stand around talking and talking and talking. But it's like they just add this one thing about it that just completely distracts you from the entire reveal of this character and like his whole beef with the Starks, and you're just getting this entire thing on the other side of the room, and it's like the main focal point. It's like, why? I mean, I get it why, because like some people, like short attention spans and whatnot, but like, who cares about that stuff? It's like, I want to at least actually watch him and let the camera just point at him and like just follow on the camera, or hell, even if like he was just walking or something like that and he's just thinking about this in his mind, works fine. It's just like an inner monologue type scene. It'll work just fine.
So then, any other scenes you want to talk about?
That was honestly probably the main one that I really felt like I could really talk about the most out of.
All right. So with that, there is two final questions. One, are you excited for next season? Did you enjoy the season enough that you think you would be ready for the next one?
Well, pretty much how it left off on a giant cliffhanger. I have to say I'm curious in seeing how it would go. So I probably have to say yes. I'm curious to see how this whole next thing would go.
And how did you enjoy the current season?
Current season, slow start.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of, I mean, I didn't mind the talking really. I feel like some people would be annoyed by it because I've always been sold on saying like, oh, you should see the fighting scenes. They're pretty awesome. And I would just say, oh, I mean, yeah, I guess. But I do enjoy characters being characters. And there's a lot of good reveal of the characters.
Yeah.
Just by expressions and what they do. I wish I can remember some of these damn lines that they would say. Cause,
really good ones.
Yeah. But pretty much I was thinking, okay. Yeah, I think I'd be curious to see how much more the story will go. So, yeah, I would say yes. I am excited to see where it goes.
Final question. Well, I guess second to last question before I ask the last one. Would you recommend the show to others? For season 1 of Game of Thrones, would you recommend the season 1 of Game of Thrones?
Yeah, I would say so.
Alright. And finally, the last question, the one that's the true end-all be-all. What house?
Oh, I know. So, Game of Thrones, another part about it that I always remembered about it was I like to read a lot of books. Some of my favorite bookstores, they have a section where they have knick-knack stuff. Each one would have a symbol of a person's house. The Starks with the wolf.
Yep.
The Lannisters with the
lion.
The lion. And the Targaryens with the dragons.
Yep. And then the Baratheons with the stag.
That's right.
And we also tend to see one other house, but very much passing. We also see technically two others. We see the Tullys with the fish, and we see the Arryns with the Avon.
Yes. But, which house?
Yes.
Do I really have to pick?
You know, you pick a few.
I do.
But I just want to hear your opinions about them.
I'm intrigued about the whole Starks because I think a lot of the characters are very intriguing. I mean, I did enjoy Ned, and Arya is a personal upper favorite of mine. However, I don't know how much Tyrion Lannister is aligned with his whole family and his house, because I feel like he feels more of an outsider than anything. He doesn't really support any of the houses.
Makes sense.
However, I did enjoy seeing how Daenerys changed over the course of the season and how she ended up, and she's literally the dragon lady, I guess you could say. So really, I just don't know, really. I'm not a fan of the Lannisters, really.
So you're really ruling those out, makes sense. I presume you guys are ruling out the other houses we haven't touched too much of.
Yeah, we haven't touched too much on those. I feel like they'll do more later on, sooner or later.
Alright.
But probably, I guess, like, I don't know, I enjoy some of the Starks, and I do enjoy the only one Lannister. And then Daenerys is Daenerys, of course.
Alright. So you would probably say Starks then, or with the
I'd rather just wait and see what happens next season.
Alright.
Hopefully there's more.
Well, I just wanted to gauge, like, on your, like, little sway of being like, nope, not liking this house as much. Now I kind of, like, swaying around.
Yeah.
Because
that's honestly not really what I get mostly out of the show is, like, I don't really know if I have really a side of it. I just want to see how they'll all end up. I feel like I'm more on the side of Tyrion. I'm just thinking, I wonder how this goes.
Alright. For the record, in case you're curious, this is true basically all the way up into the end. It is my house is Baratheon. So.
Baratheon.
Which is the stag. So.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on them.
Yeah, I'll definitely keep an eye on them. I mean, they did a lot of foreshadowing in terms of like, oh, there's these guys right here.
Yeah. I feel the Baratheon is probably the most foreshadowing.
Yeah.
The foreshadowing around Baratheon is so good.
Yeah.
But anyways, do you have anything else you want to talk about Game of Thrones?
Not really. It's a very intriguing medieval story.
Yes.
It's very much more. There's very less centered around the magic aspect of Game of Thrones, and honestly, that's more of a refreshing aspect because sometimes I do enjoy just the whole medieval or Middle Ages or Dark Ages type thing of like just keeping everything basic, no magic hoodooky stuff. I'm sure there's going to be some of it. It's fantasy. They're going to have it. I'm not going to be bothered by it. I'm just more interested in like the more or less baseline stuff of it. But yeah, that's honestly how much I feel about Game of Thrones so far. I'm pretty intrigued. But
well, if we have nothing else to talk about, do you want to talk about what we're going to be doing next episode?
All right, so this is my favorite show this time. So my favorite show was a show that came during the mid-2000s. I saw the show literally at the beginning from 2005 when it first aired, all the way to the very end in 2008. So this show definitely held a special place in my heart. Y'all probably know what it is because it's on Netflix now. Avatar: The Last Airbender, Nickelodeon's very own anime. Yeah, I don't watch a lot of anime, but this is the only one that I guess you could say is kind of like anime because it has that art style. But I love the show a lot because it has a lot of interesting stuff in it, and I'm very excited to see how Bryce views it because he's never seen the show.
Never seen it.
But we have other friends as well that have seen both of our shows here. So, Jake, if you're watching, I love you. Anyway, yeah. So, pretty much if you want to follow along with us, watch the first season of... Well, first you need to watch Game of Thrones first so we can catch up for the third episode. However, watch the first seasons of Game of Thrones and Avatar: The Last Airbender. And so next episode, we'll be talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender in a few weeks.
Yeah.
As soon as we finish that up. So
also a note for this series, in comparison to Cat Girl Film Podcast, we upload that fairly often.
Yeah. This show is gonna...
Off the air is not.
Off the air is literally gonna be once a month or once every other month, give or take, depending on how long each season is and how many stuff that needs to get done. However, this show will probably be the easiest to get out quickly because literally it's gonna probably be us talking about a show for over an hour and it'll be easy to do.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Cat Girl Film Podcast is something that's taken me forever to edit, but it's gonna be fine. I'm getting closer to being done.
Alright.
Yeah, so this is Off the Air. Be sure to watch, of course, Game of Thrones and Avatar: The Last Airbender. Next episode will be focused entirely on Avatar: The Last Airbender. First season. And we shall continue from there.
Yep.
So, thank you all for watching the first episode of Off the Air.
Indeed.
This has been the Cat. Not
Mr.
wearing...
Cat.
Mr. Cat. Fucking hell. And...
Mr. Gurl.
Irony is what makes the show go around. Anyway.
That's what makes the world go around, really.
Everywhere go around. Anyway, thank you all for watching. We shall see you next time. Peace.
Screw off.